Good afternoon. This is Calvin Metlock here with Program 9 Baseball Podcast. Today we're going to be covering topics that we're going to be talking about, of course, with pitching. Uh, as we get into this segment, we're going to talk about balance. We're going to talk about rhythm. We're going to talk about tempo. One of the main things that we want to make sure that all players and pitchers understand is the idea of the pitcher is to get in a tempo. When you get in a tempo, you're going to allow yourself to create better rhythm and then also keep your defense in tune, ready to play defense. So stay tuned as we get into the details today. We're going to talk about pitching. Scratch that whole start. Okay. Calvin Medlock here with Program 9. Start it over. Program 9 Baseball here. Start over. Ooh, I'm struggling today. Man. Let's struggle. All right. Program 9 Baseball Podcast with Calvin Metlock. Today, we're going to be focusing on speaking on rhythm, timing. We're going to focus on talking about that front foot, landing foot, and how to keep your direction centered toward home plate. As we get into pitching and as we talk about pitching, one of the biggest things that I see from young pitchers is understanding what rhythm and tempo is. So as a young pitcher, I would like for you guys to think about pitching somewhat as walking. Okay. When you go and walk, it's left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. You want to stay in a continuous flow. With pitching, your rhythm and your tempo, that's your flow. You want to make sure that when your rhythm starts, it starts when your leg kick starts up. After the leg kick, you want to keep a consistent flow from your leg kick all the way down until you land. Once the leg kick starts down, that's when you break your hands. That's when you're able now to get out front. You get your extension. Your tempo. Your tempo is more keeping the flow of the game. This is something that I think some young pitchers don't understand, and they think tempo is rushing. Tempo is staying at a steady pace, consistent pace, and movement, and it also allows your defense to get in the same rhythm as you, and they understand your tempo. So if you're a slow tempo pitcher, you're going to have a lot of your defensive guys playing on their heels. Okay. And so one of the things that I want to get into is we're going to get into the rhythm. Okay. So rhythm starts with your leg kick. 2, consistent flow up and down. So it's kind of like a seesaw. Okay. You want to stay up and down. The next thing is once your leg kick starts down, that's when your hands break. Next thing is tempo. Rhythm, tempo, they go as one. Getting in the flow of the game. Okay, so you want to make sure your tempo is fast enough, but not slow. And then at the same time, we do not want to rush. So now we get into the timing of your tempo. When you throw your pitch, you come off the mound, you catch the ball, receive it from the catcher, you get back on the rubber, you get your sign, you come set, you pitch. The thing that I see most players do, young pitchers, they will throw the pitch. You guys will walk maybe 5 or 6 steps toward home plate. Okay. And then you catch the ball, you stop, you think, and then you walk back to the mound. At that point in time, you probably just wasted about 10 seconds. Your defense at that point in time probably took their energy and their focus to something that's on the ground, maybe that's in the stands, and they're not locked in at a continuous pace of 5 to 6 seconds. So that's what you want to kind of create is you want to create to where your defense is somewhat ready every 6 to 7, 8 seconds between pitches. Okay. The signs, once you get on the rubber, okay, you want to lock in on your target. You want to make sure your catcher, your coach that's giving a sign, you want to make sure that they're moving at your tempo to get the signs to get going. Allows the this also allows the uh, catcher and the batters, they're not going to get in rhythm. And so now when you go into um, when you go into knowing, okay, this batter, I I don't want him to get set. And so now when you're moving at a tempo, he has to keep up with you. Okay, so you want to make sure when you're doing your tempo, your flow of the game is good, your timing is good, and then you want to be fast but not rush. That's one of the biggest things that I see young pitchers is you never want to be rushed. That's one of the things that you want to make sure that when you're going out and you're pitching, you never want to be rushed. But you want to move at a tempo that's going to keep everybody engaged and everybody in tune with knowing, okay, the next pitch is coming. Okay. Going off your tempo and going off your rhythm, it also helps umpires call strikes. If an umpire is in rhythm, getting down, he's more than likely going to give you a pitch or two that probably wasn't strikes, just because he's in a rhythm. He's in a rhythm. Excuse me. The umpire now is in a rhythm of calling strikes, getting down. And so now, when maybe you miss a fastball outside 2 pitches, well, now he's going to pick that up. And so the other deal is your outfielders, they're more in tune in the game. They're ready for the ball. Um, your middle infield, they're ready to turn double plays. Everybody's active when your tempo and your rhythm is at a steady, consistent rate. Everything has to be consistent. One of the things in high school that I was big on is when I threw my pitch, I never left the mound. When I threw my pitch, I walked backwards toward the rubber as I caught the ball from the catcher. And so that helped me keep my tempo going, and it allowed my defense to always stay ready. Okay, so that's one of the things that young pitchers, I think that if you guys are able to understand what rhythm is, this will help you become a more efficient pitcher. And then also, it's going to help your defense make those plays that you need made to get out of an inning. Okay, so that's pitchers pitching with rhythm and tempo. That's something that we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks. We're going to show some examples on the field. We're going to help you guys understand everyone's rhythm is different. Everyone's tempo is different. It just has to be consistent. We're going to talk about the landing foot direction. So when we talk about the landing foot, to me, the front foot, you want it pointed toward home plate as much as possible. I'm not saying it has to be dead on. I'm not saying that it has to be open either. It has to be somewhat pointed toward the catcher where you can open up your hip, that front hip. And so depending on how you step, some guys, they step across, some guys step straight. Depending on how you step is also going to depend on what's going to be good and what's going to be okay, what's not going to work as your foot is landing going toward home plate. So here we have two guys that are pitchers in the big leagues, and as you can see, their front foot is pointed more toward home plate. All right. That's going to allow them to open up their front hip and get more extension out front. And that's one of the things that I see a lot of young pitchers is when you guys land, let's say this is straight, okay? And let's say, all right, let's say this foot here. Let's say that this is straight from a right-handed hitter, pitcher. And if you're here, you're closing off your foot. Remember, you're throwing across this way. Okay, so when your foot's here, you're able to get more out front. Supposed to here, you're gonna be a little bit more restricted here. And if your hips can open, you're able to get downhill more. And so that's the biggest thing, understanding that that front foot is also gonna help allow that front hip to open, and it's also gonna help you get extension. Now, on the other thing is it also allows you to have a better drive off your backside. And that's where your power is coming from. Once you're able to get downhill, once you're able to get that front hip open, now your backside is more free. Now you can come through it and have quicker arm speed, downhill, torque. You're able to do a lot more by opening that front hip. It also allows easier flow from your front side. So when we think about front side, think about not your front side flying open, but your front side able to stay closed to where now you can pull everything back to you. And then now you're able to create more mobility to use more torque at your hips and up top. Okay. So making sure that we understand that the landing foot direction is just as important as your balance, as your direction going toward home. Everything works together. Okay, everything goes as one, and everything flows as one. The balance side. So as you can see, I got a few pictures up, and the biggest thing for balance for pitchers, you're gonna have to be balanced all the way through your delivery. This is something that when you finish, you want to finish on a stiff front side. You want to drive down. You want to have a slight bend as you land. And then you want to use that back side to drive through. And then once you drive through, that's where that front side gets more stiff. And then you're using that front foot as an anchor to drive into the ground to be able to drive off that backside and come through the ball. So that is something that when you're doing that, it's very, very, very easy to get offline if your balance is not right. Okay. So even at these top two pitchers here, these guys, as you can see, one is probably throwing a breaking ball. He's out over his front knee. He's driving down. And then the other one in the middle looks like he's throwing a changeup. And so those guys there, they're balanced. They're out front. If we look at the far right pitcher, okay, we're looking at a pitcher who is balanced. You see his front side. You also can understand his front foot and see where that front foot is landing and it's straight. Okay, he looks like a heel toe guy. Okay, and that's fine and great. Some coaches teach, you want to get on your tips first. I was a pitcher where, for me, the way I check the dirt is to see if my three spikes are hitting first. And believe it or not, when you're pitching in dirt on those mounds, you can tell if you're hitting heel first or toes first. I was a toe first guy. To me, with my height, it allowed me to get downhill more. And so for me, when I stayed tall and I got downhill, I was really on that front foot down, and it helped me keep my ball on the downhill plane. Okay. The next pitcher We're gonna look at the guy that's in the middle. Okay, he's more balanced, and so for me, I teach a lot of youth pitchers to not overdo their leg kick because of the balance aspect. When you do the balance on a leg kick, if your shoulders go back as you come up, either your hips are not strong or your balance is off a little bit. And so for me, stopping at your hips and then driving toward home plate, I think that's the best answer for it. I think that's the more consistent until you get a little bit older. I think stop youth pitchers stopping at the waist and then driving home, collapsing that backside and then driving home. I think that's the best um, balanced, consistent leg kick that we could teach. Okay. So those are the balance. You see, we got the front foot balance, we got the backside balance as well. It's very important, and I'm gonna go back to the direction. It's very important that your front foot is pointed toward home plate as much as possible. That is what you want to do. You want to make sure that that front foot is directed toward home plate as much as possible. Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about, we're going to speak on some PitchAL, and I use this in a program that I'm over with Nation Elite, and a lot of things that we focus on in doing this PitchAL is I'm mainly going to focus on understanding 5 things. Okay. So we're always going to talk about the hip and shoulder separation, which I think over the last year and a half, I really done a lot of research on it to understand once you get your foot down, you want to have your body back or your top half, you want to have it more back to where when that front foot hits, it's kind of like a slingshot. Okay. Um, that's more so torque coming through. When I was coming up, I had a lot of torque that I used off my backside. I was real big on making sure my front foot got down first and making sure that everything was back. So when I started forward, I had all my little 145 to 180. When I got older, 145 to 180, I was bringing toward home plate. And so being able to throw hard, being able to stay healthy was a big thing in me understanding my mechanics, and understanding your mechanics is that's a big deal. Okay. Your elbow flexion, you want to make sure that you're not getting too far back, but you're not getting too far out as well. Okay, you want to make sure that you're in that power position. Make sure you're able to get that extension. Your external rotation, your shoulder abduction, you want to make sure those are stretches that you're doing at home. I will post some stretches online as well to make sure that we all can understand what those stretches should look like. And then your stride strength length. For me, your stride length should be about 85. It says 80 to 95, but I'm gonna say 85 to 95% of your height. Okay, so for me, my stride length was always 5.5 to 6. Of course, I'm 5'9", 5'10". So somewhere in between there, that's where you want your stride length. And so for me, doing the PitchAL, it's also able to show me what the stride length of that pitcher is. And I think that started to help as we got into doing everything from that standpoint. And so we're gonna watch a quick video, real quick, of one of the pitchers as he's going out. And as we can see there, okay, so his hip and shoulder separation is good. But as you can see, he's a little bit going forward and he's a heel to toe guy. And over time, this is Cash Lloyd. This is about a year and a half ago. And so this is when he's 14 now, going on 14. I want to say this is when he was 11, going into 12 years. And so now the shoulder abduction for us, we want to make sure that that deal there, we want to make sure that we get that up to 85 to 95 degrees. And then his elbow, we want to make sure that we get that to 75 to 95 as well. And so over time, we have worked on that. He's gotten better at that. At 13, he was at 75 to 78 pitching. That's very good for his age. At 14, I am expecting him to be around the 80 range. And as we go down further, as this thing kicks, as you can see, the stride length is good. His external rotation, we want to make sure that up in here, he's getting stronger there to make sure that he can get out front. Then as we finish there, you got the arm speed. The PitchAL is a very good tool to use when you want to break down pitchers, when you want to make sure that, that they are being efficient with everything that they are doing. Here we have Shane Ward, who's also in the program. And as he stride out there, you see his hip and shoulder separation is great. He's well past the degrees. His stride length is great. Okay, his shoulder abduction, that's great as well. So he's throwing pretty much at peak velocity. Okay, when we get down to the other, his external rotation is also something that he has worked at. Okay, and that's more when you get in there to get that whip out front to understand that part. Everything else looks great from that standpoint. Okay. So that's PitchAL. PitchAL is a tool that I think a young pitcher, if you guys are invested in understanding your mechanics, I think this is something, the keys to know about your mechanics and the degrees and kind of knowing, okay, this is what I need to work on to be more efficient, to be more consistent, and also to make sure that when I am throwing, that I am working downhill and I know my rhythm and timing. All of this has to flow as one. Okay. Pitching from the stretch. Pitching from the stretch with guys on base, I think we can simplify this in making sure that you want to understand pitching from the stretch is assimilated. I'm gonna say it's an offset of throwing from the windup. Of course, you just taking out the windup and basically you're going from the side, leg kick, holding runners on. That means somebody's on base majority of the time. My pitchers, I prefer all my pitchers in the program to pitch from the stretch. Reason being is I think they struggle with pitching from the stretch the most. So for me, I think the best key for them is to learn the stretch. We can work in a windup at practice, but learning to pitch from the stretch, I think that is going to be what's going to help them be better when guys on base, guys at second, guys at first trying to steal, and making sure that we're doing slide steps. So here's a video I made over the summer that talked about pitching from the stretch. As you can see, that's the front foot landing direction that I was talking about. You want to make sure that you do not get that far across because it's going to close your front hip off.